Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is Maurice. Moving away from passive aggressive decision making is very difficult. The number one trap that we individuals and as teams in corporate America seem to be very stuck on is passive aggressiveness. Now, what's passive to me would maybe aggressive to you. What's aggressive to you may be passive to me. And that's where a lot of the difficulty starts, in that we don't see eye to eye on how to make decisions. Where I am trying to create something, somebody else starts refining. When somebody else starts refining, I start refining them. Then somebody moves to execute, only to find out that this person over here has already made a decision, and we're not on the same page. And yet we all tend to critique and judge one another that such and such is passive aggressive and such is passive aggressive, and we all do that to each other. And the primary reason why we all feel this way is because indeed we really are. According to the other person, I'm very passive aggressive because I don't use the same decision making style and I don't use the same communication style that they use. So they rightly view me as being passive aggressive, where in turn I'm viewing them being very passive aggressive because I feel it, and I very much feel it, that they're doing that to me. And so we all have this very unaware reality, I guess you could say. We're just not aware that we are somebody else's passive aggressive individual. And so having teams move away from passive aggressive has got to be a major goal for all of us, so that we can make decisions in a unified way, create a clear vision, a clear direction, good unified decisions to our teams, and allow the teams to capture that vision instead of hearing 4 or 5 different opinions and different phases of the decision itself. And so by moving away from passive aggressiveness into a much more aligned collaborative style is critically important for good leadership to happen within organizations. So let me dissect this just real quickly. Okay, so what we see here is the passive aggressive style. It's very simple to understand. It's just very hard to practice. It really is. We tend to go from passive aggressive depending on the situation. And remember that all of us behave very differently, but we all do this to one another. At a certain, my personality, for example, whenever I'm not comfortable with how a decision's going, I'll go passive. And then whenever I like how the decision's going, or I like the decision itself, I'll become very positive about the idea. But we tend to teeter from one extreme to the other. And like I said earlier, we all tend to do this to one another. The answer is for us to learn how to be assertive as individual team members, move away from passive and aggressive, and move away from the going back and forth between the extremes, and becoming more assertive. Now, as a team, the key is how does a team become assertive? It becomes collaborative, and it agrees that this is the way we're going to make decisions together. We have an agreement that we're going to flow ideas and we're going to refine them in their proper way, and we're going to be on the same page at the same time, so that when we get into execution and implementation, then we're on the same page. And that in and of itself is what encourages teams about following a leadership team, is when they can see a good discussion, a process by which everyone's respected and the different, not only personalities, but viewpoints are received. They're able to work through the sausage making, debate, have good professional discussions, have crucial conversations as necessary, and yet come together as a team in a unified way and roll things out. So what you see on the screen here is a combination of the personalities and the decision-making style. So look at the 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom, the triangle at the bottom. Those are the 4 phases that provide for very good decision-making. And if teams, individual team members, and teams as a whole stay with this game plan, with this game plan, then you will move away from passive aggressiveness because everyone is on the same page. So the idea is that each one of these phases has to be followed one after the other. When somebody creates an idea, then everyone else is supposed to move into advancing that idea. So we all have to be really good at, first of all, creating and presenting in a very good way. Okay, we got to learn how to present better. Otherwise, we're going to really discourage everyone from wanting to advance what we're saying, because most of the time because we don't do a good job presenting, everybody's kind of going, I don't think I understand what's going on. So that pulls them into refining. So by creating well, by presenting well, we make it easy for the teams to advance, to ask clarifying questions, to speak about the pros of the idea, speak about the pros and the possibilities of what's been presented. And everyone has to move to each one of the phases together as a team, and everybody has to participate. And by participating, I am really meaning outwardly verbalizing and participating in conversation. You can't sit there quietly in one section of the conversation and say, well, I'm participating, I'm just waiting for us to get to refining. No, you have to participate in advancing. So whenever somebody presents an idea, then everybody moves to advancing. And advancing is filled with great, positive, clarifying questions. Something like saying like this. So, for example, what you're saying is by moving the office from the Canal Street location down more downtown, you're thinking that we're going to catch the demographics closer to downtown and beyond the Canal Street. Okay, I see that. All right, I see what you're saying. Notice I see what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying because I'm about to refine it, but I see what you're saying. I'm advancing the idea. First of all, I'm advancing you. I'm respecting you, but I'm advancing the idea. Okay. As long as I know that we're going to go to refining, then I should be able to sincerely advance. But if I don't advance because I'm waiting for refining and I stay quiet, that's where passive aggressiveness comes in. Okay. Or if I advance, but I don't give room for refining because I want to move to execute real fast and I don't want to get into the details and I don't want to get into the negativity and I don't want anyone to challenge my views, then that's passive aggressive. All right. So again, we go from 1 to 2 and everyone has to participate. Everybody in the meeting, everybody in the conversation has to participate in advancing, and everybody has to find a reason to advance it. They can't just sit there and quietly and say, well, I agree with such and such. No, contribute. Jump in, okay? You want your ideas to be advanced, therefore respect others and provide the same thing for them. Now, after a while in a season of advancing, depending on the severity and when the decision needs to be made, then we all agree, okay, hey guys, let's move to refining. And so we check with the person presenting and said, hey, you okay if we move to refining? Well, that person should see that, yeah, I've been advanced. And so, yeah, definitely, let's move into it. Now, the person that's presenting has to also now jump into refining. They can't just sit there and advance and not refine or get defensive when it gets refined. And refining becomes challenging. That's the definition. So in advancing, we talk about the possibilities, clarity, make sure we all understand. We seek understanding, and we make sure with the presenter that we are understanding and that they feel that they're being understood. So there's a constant back and forth checking about, do you hear me? Do you feel that we're advancing? Okay, I think we're understanding what you're saying. Yes, right? That's the key to say, all right, let's move to refining. And the person presenting needs to welcome the refining and say, yeah, guys, let's go ahead, let's speed it up. But the presenter can't become defensive now. They have to advance everyone else's refining. So if I'm presenting and it was my idea and now we're in refining, I need to be able to say, all right, yeah, go ahead. Johnny, your turn. Yeah, tell me, what are your thoughts? Well, Maurice, I have a real problem that, by the way, I'm role playing. I have a real problem moving the office because it's too close to the north, to the east, the office that we have in Harahan, and we're going to pull away from that. Have you looked at that yet? No, my response would be is no, I haven't looked at that. Or it could be, yes, I have looked at that. I'd like to show you the numbers, but I appreciate you. I appreciate the refining. I appreciate the concern. So let me write that down. All right, guys, what else? As the creator, I foster feedback. I foster critique. I foster challenging. And it's got to be very sincere debate where I'd be able to say, no, I haven't looked at the numbers. This is my projection. I'd like to look into the numbers, but I'm going to be presenting to you guys something I'm going to get with Lori in accounting, and I want to present the numbers to you guys. But in the meantime, just need to make sure that this is the direction we want to go. I have to be able to say things like that in the refining stage where I'm being challenged. I can't get defensive. And in refining, I can't just all of a sudden shoot everybody's idea down. I have to listen to them. So when we go into refining, I listen to them and I validate them, and I validate all their points, and then we say, okay, guys, so here's what I think we ought to do. Let's go ahead and dive into these, and let's have a good discussion about it. And then it's an open refining, and you validated me, I validated you guys in your refining. Now let's get into the discussion. Let's get into the debate. Let's identify how much time we have. Do we need to make a decision today? Do we have to push some of this into later? Do we need to call an off-site meeting and refine it some more? Do we need to go get data? Whatever it is, we're in deep refining, and refining could take a while depending on when the decision needs to be made. So when it's time to make a decision, we have to all push for executing and say, all right, guys, I feel we need to make a decision. And that's not the time for people to then wait and say, well, and then start bringing out what you really meant. Okay, and that's where passive aggressiveness really comes out. When we're about to make a decision, we've been talking for 20 minutes, or we've been talking for 2 weeks, or we've been emailing each other now for 10 weeks or so, and then we're about to execute it, and then people in the room decide that now's the time to really tell you how I really feel. And that's very passive aggressive. And so everybody, you can't do that because you've missed the opportunity, and you've really broken a lot of trust because we've been having this conversation, you just didn't jump in. Okay, and that's what makes the very aggressive individuals want to jump in and say, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to make a decision, or we're going to make a decision, and then everybody gets frustrated because we're not all playing by the same rules. So once we execute, we all have to agree the decision's been made, and we all have to support it. Now, this is what collaboration means. This is the Z model, as you can see on the screen. It's the Z model of learning, Z model of decision making. It's a model that allows everyone to play by the same rules, kind of like in baseball. Everybody agrees. You go to first base, second base, third base, home. Everybody plays by the same rules. When somebody pitches an idea or presents an idea, we all play by the same rules, and we execute really well together and this moves us away from a passive aggressive to a much more collaborative, unified approach. The challenge is that you see the personalities in the top right-hand corner. All of us, in our personalities, we tend to bypass all these different steps because some of us prefer one phase, others prefer another phase, and so then we tend to compensate each other and really arm wrestle one another. So yes, you'll notice in the rest of this video, we're going to dissect this. All right, so keep this in mind. The basic rule of good decision making is as follows. It's a good quote by Brian Tracy. He says, even when others do not entirely agree with the decision, the results are much better if you have gone through a detailed process of discussion, made a clear decision, and then requested full commitment and support. This is a true mark of leadership. All right, there's the guidelines. That's how we're going to approach this. We have a detailed process that we agree on the discussion. We're going to debate, we're going to discuss, have good professional discussions, make a clear decision, and then once the decision's made, we're going to request that everybody support it and implement it in a unified voice, and that is the mark of great leadership. All right, so now let's dissect this. Let's go to part 2.